Good evening. Welcome to the Conductor's Game Changers. My name's Jeff Standridge, and I serve as Managing Director of the Conductor, and I'm so happy to be here with my friend, Mitch Bettis, who serves as President of Arkansas Business Publishing Group. Mitch, it's great to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and look forward to talking.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many of you know, for our Game Changers program, we speak with a true game changer, and Mitch and Arkansas Business Publishing Group, they are game changers for the state of Arkansas. They're game changers for the business world. Always appreciate getting the opportunity to talk to Mitch, and appreciate you taking the time. And so, Mitch, what we'd like to start out doing is just tell us a little bit about you, about Mitch the person. We'll get into Mitch the business professional.
All right.
But tell us a little bit about Mitch the person.
Well, like you, I'm an LA boy.
There you go.
From Lower Arkansas. As I was born and raised in Arkadelphia. Spent some wayward years in other places, Kansas and Oklahoma and Missouri, but all my family's here. And married, 3 kids. I've got a 17-year-old that's about to be 18 that's making me feel old, and then about to be 13, and another one, and about to be 10, another one, a boy and 2 girls. We lived in Little Rock, and I've been in media marketing business since I was a kid. We'll get into that, I'm sure. But I fell in love early, and had a real blessing of a life to be able to do that. And, so Arkansas boy.
Arkansas boy. You went to Ouachita Baptist and OBU Tiger.
I did my undergrad at Ouachita, and have a real love for that campus. My mother worked there for more than 2 decades. My father was the Coke man in town, filled all the drink boxes for both Henderson and Ouachita, and so I grew up in the concession stands of both Henderson and Ouachita, and since I was a child, loved both of those universities, and did my graduate work at Oklahoma State.
Tell us about your undergraduate and graduate work.
Yeah, did mass communication. It was is the program at Ouachita, and it's meant to give you a real breadth of experience. The dean of that program, Dr. Bill Downs, was at the time really well regarded in the state. I feel really blessed to have been a part of his training and coaching, and plenty of times he had to kick me in the butts, and it was really a formative experience, a mentor. And what's special about that, Jeff, is we'd never called him anything but Dr. Downs. It's the most reverential language I would ever use. But after we were graduated, he never stopped encouraging. I'd get notes. He would tell my mother how proud he was of me. And after he retired, as we all will do, his health began to deteriorate, and we became friends in a way that was really special. I visited him in the nursing homes just as life progressed. And
awesome.
Have an amazing love for him. In fact, I taught for a period at Ouachita as well. Taught a couple of years there. Got to help him with a class or 2 as he was winding down his professional career, and then ultimately had an office that he had. So as I eventually left teaching, stole. Can I admit that? Nobody's going to
statute limitations.
All gone. Yes. Stole some things from his office, and I have those 2 things and a photograph of him sitting on my desk at the office. It's a reminder to push yourself and do well and do good. I hear his voice in my head many times a day. So that experience at Ouachita was really formative and transformative for me. And then launched out of our dorm room, me and a guy launched an advertising agency.
Okay.
So those of you who are watching have to imagine a world without Macintosh computers. Okay, and it's even so old, I'm calling it a Macintosh, Apple computers. So those were launched around 1984. So I went to college in 1986. So he had so much, Dr. Downs had so much foresight. He outfitted the publication teams with these new computers that nobody had knew. And he says, this is the future, learn how to do it. But that even training really equipped us to be able to kind of get involved in quote desktop publishing, and then we've been able to use that as a junior and senior operating in a dorm, out of our dorm room, and ad agency. And we got written up in a lot of state publications because of the novelty of that kind of an entrepreneurial endeavor, and then got written up in Adweek magazine, which is a national magazine. These 2 bonehead kids had pooled all their earthly capital, which was $300.
I started to say all $175.
And did important things like bought business cards and letterhead, and then that grew into landing clients and moving into an office downtown. Then we moved into a bigger office downtown, and we started hiring staff. And so that whole Washita experience really became some formational moments for both educationally, but also how to run a business and find support. And so, yeah.
So where did graduate school come in there?
We operated that business for a couple of years. Then my partner went to seminary in Southwestern Theological Seminary in Dallas. And then I followed a couple of mentors to Oklahoma State. And I had two goals in life. This sounds hokey, but I had two goals. One was to own a small community newspaper. And the other was to teach at Washita. And so I knew if I was going to do that, I needed to go do a master's and potentially doctoral work as well. And so the doors open to be able to do that. So.
You were an overachiever. My high school career goal was to be a rodeo clown. So
hey, people can't see this, but there's actually a scary clown sitting in the corner. So now this all makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, there's a story behind that clown. Yeah, I want to be a rodeo clown. My wife will tell you that I achieved half of that goal. So, I know growing up in Lower Arkansas, as you said, in LA, there's not a lot to do down there. And so I know what kind of child I was growing up. I'd love to hear what kind of child you were growing up.
I was actually a pretty good kid. And I was not much of a troublemaker because it's easy to find trouble in a small town, right?
It is.
I went to work early. This is what kind of turned me on to this business in general was I became a paper boy for my hometown newspaper and loved it. And that's a self-employed gig. If you know anything about paper boys and girls of the day, you buy at wholesale, you resell at retail, you have to knock on doors to build clients, you run receivables, you do customer service. Plenty of times I get a call in the middle of the night that a little old sweet lady who says I threw the newspaper on the roof and I better get down here to do it. You drive back into town and hand deliver that, and you learn these moments of what customer service means and how customer attention works. And so I started when I was like in 7th grade. We were running a newspaper route, and so I played a lot of sports because that's what you also do. And I was never really good at any of that. But those things kept me out of trouble. My mom and dad insisted we were in church anytime the door opened. That was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday nights. All of those routines were very much part of my life. And all those people kind of invest in you. In hindsight, you just see how people pour into you in those moments. That helped keep me out of trouble.
There was a time when there was no ball practice or anything scheduled on a Wednesday night. In a small town, that was kind of the cardinal
sacred.
Yeah, absolutely.
You did not schedule anything on that. That seems foreign now for all of us.
It does.
But that was my experience.
So you started your first marketing agency when you're in college. Talk now about your career trajectory to where you are today.
So it's interesting. So when I've talked to a lot of college classes, I was at Washita recently, but ASU, Conway, Harding, all of them, because I tell this one story that I can actually see going back from middle school yearbook class, a continuous line of influential people who directed my next steps. So, I can do that if you want me to, but the point is, when I left the agency, went to grad school, followed a mentor. When I went to left Oklahoma State back into professional work, I had a recommendation I was running a newspaper at Oklahoma State University. It's 30,000 circulation. I was running the ad departments there, and then went to do sales for a media company in Houston. And that was a relationship that referred me to there. And then I joined a newspaper company, and it was the relationship at OSU that got me to a newspaper company. They shipped me to their management training program in Liberal, Kansas. The company was owned out of Houston, a family that owned a bunch of media properties, but their management training program was in Liberal, Kansas, way out by the Panhandle. And that was an incredible experience. It was the hardest I probably have ever worked, without exaggeration, 70, 80, 90 hours a week. It was fully immersive in terms of, and really my first leadership experience. Yes, I managed people at the newspaper at OSU, but really in terms of really learning how to do that and learning how to fail. And I failed a lot in that experience. And we had an amazing run of success, but how I managed people really wasn't that good. I mean, what did I know? But that boss he put me through the ringer, Jim Ellsbury. And when people ask me kind of my Mount Rushmore of influential people, Bill Downs, who I mentioned before, is on there, but Jim Ellsbury is on there as well. And I learned so much about how to lead a team, how to be accountable, how to lead sales, how to meet our profit expectations, how to build a product, how to evaluate products. That experience was amazing. And I met my wife there. So that is always a beautiful check.
Absolutely.
From there, I got my first publishing job. So in the media world, what that means is basically you're over the entire media operation. So if you think of it as a bank president, you might have a VP of commercial lending and a VP of residential home loans and a VP of service, and so you have all these teams of publishers over the editor, who over content, over the sales manager, over accounting. So basically, you think of it as the general manager. And that was in Colorado, and Craig, Colorado, up near Steamboat Springs, a daily paper there, and really got that job because the person who had previously been in this management training program referred me to that, Chris Baker, and that moved me to there. And then I was there a couple of years, moved to a group media manager, which now you're over multiple media properties.
Right.
We had to really slum it here because we were in Aspen, Colorado, and it's terrible, hideous. No, it's the most extraordinary place on the planet. So I was over a whole collection of media properties in that area. And then through a turn of events, I got an opportunity to buy my first newspaper, which was in Northwest Colorado. So left after a couple of years, left that group and started again that little entrepreneurship journey. And it was hard and amazing and challenging and invigorating, and it was everything. It's the perfect entrepreneur story that you're undercapitalized, market's tough, thinly staffed. You are dancing on the end of a long branch that's about to break at any moment. I played beat the bank to make payroll, many. It's everything you hear about a Main Street business journey, and it was extraordinary. And loved every bit of it, and so loved that community. They were so great to me and my wife. In fact, we're about to take a massive RV trip here in 2 weeks, and we're purposely circling back to that community because we love everything about them and have such a beautiful appreciation and reverence for what happens there in Northwest Colorado.
When we finish here, I want you to share with me the secret to getting your family to take an RV trip with you, because I've been working on that for years. And if my kids are listening tonight, they'll tell you that
this is your dream.
They said, "Tell us where we're going, and we'll meet you there. You can drive the RV out. We'll meet you there."
Maybe you need to give me 2 or 3 weeks to tell you this was a terrible idea.
I want to hear about the secret and then I want to hear about how it goes.
Yeah, this could be bad. We're excited about it.
That's awesome.
But we always knew, even though in Colorado while we were there, and loved it, and it's incredibly beautiful and amazing. I know I wanted to be closer to home, and home is Arkadelphia, and my parents were getting older, and our intent was always to do that. So we started building that little business to make Mitch dispensable. I don't know how many times I said that in that business, that we're trying to train people up and get people equipped, and then we were able to, while we owned that, move back to Arkansas.
Oh, you moved back while you still own that?
Yeah, and began teaching at Washington. So therein was goal met number 1 on the community newspaper, i.e. in Meeker, Colorado.
There's a lesson there for entrepreneurs. We talk a lot about asking entrepreneurs to assess how much time they're working on their business versus working on in their business, to use the Michael Gerber phrase, and that your business will always become more valuable when it can operate with you not in it every day, right?
100% true.
And so that gave you the opportunity to go pursue a passion.
That's right.
And a life goal of teaching it.
And as much as I liked it snowing from August to May, and I loved the mountains and I loved the work, my wife did not. And my wife's a warm weather gal, and so getting that met another kind of relationship goal. And so we moved back here, had a great teaching experience, and then a relationship that a gentleman I worked with in Liberal at the newspaper there was leading a group of properties in Missouri, and asked us to come up and be a part of his operation. So we left Washington after a few years. We left Washington, went back into the media world, helping him there and serving as his sales manager. That was with a publicly traded media company. So that was a real challenge for me, learning to operate in a very different climate.
Yeah.
They're the largest United States still to this day, and they have a very different set of values and principles when you're a shareholder-driven company, and you live day to day, month to month, definitely quarter to quarter. And really kind of, there's a very different operating philosophy when you have that many stakeholders that you're accountable to. So that was a great experience. And then I ultimately moved back with that company to Arkansas to manage all their Arkansas and Northern Louisiana properties, kind of their regional manager there. Became frustrated. Is that the diplomatic way to do that? And again, I really wasn't very proud of kind of how we were operating as a company, how we were treating our community, how we were treating our staffs, products we were building. And it was a joy because coming back to Arkansas, I got to now be over the newspaper I started at in Arkadelphia. That was one of the properties where I was a paper boy and then became a reporter and a designer and a photographer and cut my teeth. And so that was a real joy to do that, but became increasingly frustrated. And then a relationship, a student I had taught at Washington who came to the Missouri to work for me at that media property, had left that property and came to work at Arkansas Business Publishing Group and said, hey, we just lost our president. And I'm telling him I'm miserable. We're sitting at pizza joints in Little Rock and U.S. Pizza, and I was saying, I'm done. I just need to go be a greeter at Walmart. I'm miserable. I hate what I'm doing. I'm not proud of myself. I need a change. And he said, why don't you come talk to Olivia Farrell, who owned that company, was a founder of that company. Right. She helped found it right out of UA Little Rock. And Olivia and I, hit it off. We had a 3-hour initial discussion. I think I always explain it to Olivia is we put Olivia and me together like one good human. You know, she has so many amazing skills that I can't even imagine. And she had run that company for a long time because that started in the late 70s. Yeah. And it had a lot of iterations and growth and development. Very much bootstrapped organization that had grown to a multi-billion-dollar organization. And but I always appreciate her wisdom because she had realized the company had outgrown her. And I think what an amazing thing for an entrepreneur to even recognize that I have done everything I can do with my baby, and now I've got to turn that over to somebody else. And ultimately, before we bought the company last year, she had done just what you said, had backed out of all operations for about a 5-year period. And we had gone on a run. Up until last year, we've had 7 consecutive years of record revenue or profit, but the company got more valuable every day she wasn't there. And, because we proved we didn't need, quote need, the founder to handle those day-to-day operations. And consequently, when the transaction happened, the multiple for her and the stockholders, because we had 26 stockholders at that point, that we were collapsing down to me into a single stockholder. But I thought, how brave and amazing that an owner would go, everything I've done, I've taken it as far as I can and need help. And so from a value proposition, how we treat people, how we treat product, how we treat community, she and I were in such alignment. It gave me new energy, new breath that I didn't want to just go be a recruiter at Walmart. Right. I couldn't believe a place like that existed. You've been in our office and you kind of know some of those people and appreciate that. It's and it is so. I started there in 2013, and so completed my 7th year, and so I'm in my 8th year there. And we bought the company last year, and the stockholders cashed out, and that's extraordinary fun for me to watch those people who might have had a lot of sweat equity. Some of those 26 stockholders were there in the beginning, but without exaggeration, and entrepreneurs can appreciate this, they had no money in the beginning, none. Yeah. These were punk college kids who had nothing. They drove cabs at night just to have a couple of bucks so they could do this during the day and follow a passion. It's a beautiful entrepreneurial story. Wow. And they couldn't pay anybody, right? So some of the compensation, those other people, they got stock. You're going to be rich. Here's a share of stock. And I met in the closing, the woman who was paid by stock who wrote the horoscope in the early days of the 1970s and early 80s. Wow. I love that. And she cashed out well. So that is a beautiful entrepreneurial story that I think that you can see a business be built that way, and that there is a way to exit, and you can. I think they felt good that they could turn over somebody who understood the value proposition and had aligned values as well on a personal, professional standpoint. That So February was a year, and so yeah, another round of entrepreneurship for us. You know, so
Let's talk about your vision for Arkansas Business Publishing Group going forward.
yeah. So
The media world's continuing to change, right?
so what's so I'm an old man, you know, at 52, but having started so young. I mean, you go back to paperboy days as a 7th grader, and I was a reporter as a teenager, and sales in the 80s and salesman. So I've seen where historically we were down to 2 or 3 key media properties in any community, right? You had a newspaper, you might have a TV station if you had a little bit of size, but you might have had a little radio station and a couple of billboards, but the media options weren't that robust. Consequently, newspapers in particular were ridiculous cash cows. We were routinely doing 30 and 40% EBITDAs at every place I was, and there just was no competition, and we got lazy, and we didn't take care of our community and our people well. But when you're running those margins, you become in the bullseye for private equity firms,
Right.
Who would be thrilled to have that. So one of the big changes in media in general, and that goes with TV, and that goes with radio, and that goes with billboard, and any conventional media, and definitely with newspapers, is a bunch of private equity being able to build it, buying up all these properties because you're doing these excessively amazing margins. And so we've seen this evolution of media. And so when I was even in Aspen, and the evolution of the internet, which again makes me sound so old even to talk about, I was around before the internet was even.
You was around when it was invented.
That's yes, and we kind of thought this won't be a thing. It won't hurt our business that much. And most media outlets never embraced what that could be, and had an adversarial relationship for a series of years after that. There were some visionaries who really latched a hold. But what we've seen in media in general has been this dynamic change since 1980 to present. The last 20 years have been an extraordinary change in conventional media, in terms of ownership, in terms of execution, in terms of choice, in terms of sales models, in terms of diversification strategies, in terms of skill sets needed as well. And so to be able to kind of watch and live through that evolution has given you just an enormous amount of context of kind of what is going to make us successful. And so the beautiful thing about this specific company and where we're going is that what Olivia saw 25 years ago was niche. It was never mass. Every other media outlet started with mass, right? I want as many eyeballs as possible on my TV station, any ears on my radio station, and every eyeball possible in any print media, right? It was all about mass, and we wanted the kids to read us in the honor roll. We want the parents to clip out the clipping and put it on the refrigerator. We covered sports, we covered town hall, we covered everything. Huge breadth. We wanted every eyeball possible. But this audience, what this company started was we're not going to do that. We're going to focus on affluent, educated decision makers, highly targeted niches, and not be all things to all people. We don't want every consumer, right? We want select consumers. And they began building a philosophy, which now is what every media outlet has moved to.
And every marketing agency has
everything is niched. We've got marketing agencies who only handle agriculture and print deals, right? That they have niched their specialty so much. And so what was a novelty and an oddity in 1978 and 1980 and 1984 and all that kind of history of our company, it was so much foresight. And that's why I think we have been so well positioned. It was really those founders, Olivia, Alan, Max, that whole original group that really is always focused on let's be great at a narrow thing, and not try to be all things to all people. So what does that mean for our company? This is what then, as I got there, we began a fairly dynamic change. I'll give you a couple of numbers as an example. When I got there, 77% of all of our revenue was print driven. 5% was digital, and the remaining 25% is what we refer to, 77, 5, whatever the remaining math is. Do something for me in the crowd. Was what we call other. Okay. So events, subscriptions, custom work.
Right.
And we set a purposeful course to alter that now. We still see an incredibly powerful, meaningful medium in print. There's a lot of talk about print is dead. That is not our experience. So in 2018, we had record print revenue in our company. 2019, we beat that record again. We launched 3 new magazines last year. In a pandemic, we've launched 2 new magazines this year. It is still an incredibly powerful, ethereal, effective tool in the right approach.
Right.
And it is an important part of our business. But we purposely set out a structure to lower our dependence on a single kind of revenue stream.
Right.
And then reposition the talent level and the offerings of our company to be able to meet a broader set of needs, but stay niche. And we had set a goal by 2020 to be the following: 60% print, 20% digital, and 20% other. We will end the year 55% print, 25% digital, and the remaining other. And so we're actually ahead of schedule on those things.
Very good.
Despite print growth, print still the dominant in terms of the dollar amount, a huge part of our revenue streams. But that has required a substantial investment in talent, because the talent to do the digital work that we do isn't in our building, or wasn't in our building. So we've had to build a team, and frankly, I failed a lot. We invested a lot of money, and it didn't pay off for years. This is an entrepreneurial story, right?
Right.
We were committed. I was committed that this has to be part of our media mix, our offerings for our niche goals. And so we've grown from, in just really the last 3.5 to 4 years, grew to about 10% digital to 25. And in about 3 years, we will have more other and digital than we will print. It will take over, even though our print is still growing for us.
Well, and I was going to say, not because print is dying, as people were saying, it's because you're very consciously and deliberately growing the other areas.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's just the percent of the breakdown. And so we, trying to make sure I'm giving you the most accurate number. 3 of our top 5, if not 4 of our top 5 accounts this year won't buy print.
Yeah.
And they are part of our digital infrastructure. Right. We're doing digital marketing for them all over the country. Right. We might, metal buildings to termite control.
Right.
You get the gist. They may not be a perfect print audience or event audience for an Arkansas business as a state's business magazine, but we have built out an infrastructure that has proven different than other digital marketing companies and an effective way to do that. So, but that was a purposeful transition. And so what we see for the future is we know our D&O continue to be a more significant part of our revenue mix. And we are, most people won't know this, but we produce magazines for companies all over the state. There are alumni magazines for universities we create on their behalf, right? It's all part of the O, that's other, it's basically agency services and marketing services. We've hired and crafted, grew, trained, hired people running basically an agency suite of services as well. That I rattled off the names of clients. You would know them all, that we're doing what would be a collection of marketing services work across the nation.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about leadership. If I were to tell you, I know a few people at Arkansas Business. If I were to tell you that I'd called a few of them to ask them about your leadership style, I didn't, by the way, but I thought about it.
You could.
Now, what would they say? What would they say is Mitch Bettis' leadership style?
Well, I think they would say 2 things, because we actually talk about this a lot.
Okay.
It is a regular conversation with our management team of how we're behaving, acting, and leading, and what leadership means and doesn't mean. The difference between leading and managing, leadership and management, and what their roles are. Because all of our managers also are active in their roles. Like the editor of Arkansas Business manages 7 or 8 people, right? But is also writing and editing, right? So they are working managers, much like a lot of people can recognize.
And you spend deliberate time developing that team.
That is right.
As an enterprise.
That's right, because I manage managers. I don't get to do any fun stuff anymore. I'm not a paper boy. I don't get to deliver papers. I seldom get a chance to cover a story. I love getting out and selling and meeting clients, but I don't get to do that every day. And so I spend my day developing managers. And so I think what they would say is, number one, that Mitch spends his management style is trying to get the best out of everybody on the team.
Okay.
And recognizing that everybody's not good at everything. That's okay. And we say that about niches. Every reader isn't good for all of our products, right? We're okay with the concept that we can be great at some things and not others. And so how do we get the best out of everybody? How do I know Jeff? I know his strengths. I know his goals. I know what he wants to be when he grows up. And how do I cultivate that and put Jeff in the opportunities for the best case for success? Then I go to Grayson or Mary or Sally or Bob and have maybe a different individualized strategy for that. It's exhausting. It's hard. It's not a template. It changes because every one of these people change and evolve in terms of their goals and their challenges. It's also amazingly rewarding. And I think what's a testament to that for us is how many people boomerang. We have a label on people who come to our company and then realize there's a better opportunity down the road.
Grass is greener.
That's right. And then realize, wow, and come back. And actually on their kind of name tag at the office, they have a little boomerang. We celebrate those people. We've got some that have boomerang 2, 3, 5 is the most. Life events took this person away several times. And I love that. I think that that's the recognition that we're committed to their individual and their family success in terms of how we craft time at work, how we craft benefits, how we craft experience. Right? So I hope they would say his leadership style is how do we get the best out of each other. And the other piece of that is the central thing that I repeat over and over is how do we operate for everybody's greater good? So much so we have language for this. We're sitting on a 4-legged stool, chair in this case, right? But we talk about the 5-legged stool, okay? And these are really our key 5 stakeholders at the end of the day. And every business is going to have a set of stakeholders. It might be 3, it might be 10. Or ours, we've narrowed down to 5. There's a 6th that we think is implied, but technically we call it 5. Here are the 5. They are employees, readers, subscribers, advertisers, all of our sales partners, vendors, and stockholders. And so the leadership philosophy is every one of those is equal and valuable. And that for me is rooted in a couple of Bible verses, which would tie into Galatians 5:13, in love, serve one another. Philippians 2:2 and 4, I actually have that plaque on my desk that I get to look at every day. But in humility, put others' needs above yourself. But the best for me is Ephesians 5:21, be subject to one another. And if I spend my day thinking about how to improve Jeff and give him the tools he needs and make him successful, and Jeff is thinking about Mitch, how does he help Mitch? If we are subject to one another, we're going to build a company, a community, a state, a nation that is going to be successful. So we talk about the 5-leg stool over and over and over, and so much as the LLC that owns Arkansas Business Publishing Group, I named 5-leg stool LLC because I want us talking about it every possible way. And there's tension in the stool. Let's not pretend it's Pollyanna, because every employee wants more money, right? Of course, wants a thing, wants a better computer, wants a thing. Every reader has demands and wants more of us. Every consumer is asking for more. Every advertiser wants more readers and lower rates. Without fail, you can ask them; it'll happen every time. Every vendor wants higher prices and me to pay faster, right? And the shareholders wants more dividend, right? So there is a tension, but my job is balance. And so it may mean, and I've worked for publicly traded companies who have a 1-leg stool. Everything is sent to the shareholder, and if you're going to try to stand on a 1-leg stool, it is not going to work. That's why they've gone bankrupt a couple times. But the reality is, it's balance for us. And it may mean the shareholders can't take grotesque dividends. And we've got to make sure we're investing in the right compensation plans, the right benefit plans. And it may mean that we need to not send everything to shareholders, but commit to our vendors who are key parts of this, of what we do. And so much so, how that manifests for us is we're committed. Every bill is paid within 15 to 30 days. Every one of it. We're not going to take you 60 days. We're not taking a free loan out of your skin.
Right.
We value you. If we really value you, that's going to manifest in a tangible action, right? And we love our employees, and everybody says that. But what does that mean? Well, we try to have, we have a parental leave plan. We've got obviously the health insurance. If you've been in our building, we have a kids room. If you're a parent and have daycare that blows out, or kids need to come up after school, managing your kids, I want you to have a safe place that they can work. There's a tree house in there, and there are games, and even an Etch-a-Sketch, which no 6-year-old even knows how to operate anymore. But that's for me. I go in there sometime for the Etch-a-Sketch.
I know how to erase one.
That's good. But if it really, that takes money, right?
Yeah,
that's resources, and that's physical plan. And so if we really care about our employees, how are we going to meet their needs? And so philosophically, I think the team would hopefully say he's working every day to get the best out of everybody, recognizing everybody brings something unique to the table. And they're probably sick of hearing me preach it, but I talk about the 5-leg stool every staff meeting. It comes up at every manager meeting on a monthly basis. It's on everything corporately we push forward. And because I want all of our team members thinking about that we need each other. We need to be subject to one another in order to make this company great, to make this community great, make this state great.
I want to tell our those that are watching and viewing on Facebook Live or on Zoom that if you have questions, we're going to be getting to those in a few moments. Make sure you put those in the comments of Facebook Live, or if you're in Zoom, please add those into the chat box, and we will we'll address your questions in a couple of moments. Mitch, I want to throw out a few words, and I'm just going to give you the words.
Bring it.
And I want you to just tell me what's the first thing that comes to mind.
This sounds dangerous. This sounds dangerous.
Just within the context of your business background, your business philosophy, your leadership style, etc. So, vision.
Growth.
Okay.
And that's human growth as much as it's company growth.
Okay.
We are actively looking for growth in our company. We expect growth by acquisition or organic. But we are not going to do that at the expense of the individual growth of our team members. So
okay.
When I hear that word, I really think about all the ways that growth is important.
Talent.
Hard to find. Can that be hyphenated? What's interesting for us is the changing nature of our needs as a company. We need far more than just a good reporter and a great page designer,
sure.
Right? And it is hard. This isn't a great example of what a CEO should be doing. I lead almost all the recruiting in our company. I'm the first interview anybody has. And that's not, there's a lot of reasons that's a terrible idea. But I'm the one, I just mentioned earlier, I'm the one at the universities standing in front of students telling them about our company and what this market is, because I'm recruiting.
Right.
It's the reason we have 7 paid interns every summer. I'm recruiting, right? And it's just so hard to find the person who's going to distinguish our company in a meaningful and powerful way and set us apart from other sources that are out there. It is the singular most pivotal thing that we've got to work on as a business owner.
Sure.
And it's I've had to learn that often the hard way, but hard to find.
Okay.
Hyphenated. I'll cheat on that one.
Culture.
Critical. Back to the hard to find. When I'm the first interview and I'm sussing out 2 things. I don't necessarily want you to fit in my culture, because even culture evolves on some level, and I want people to help me grow. I just want us to have the same values. Okay? I want us to understand the stool and know that we're not here for any one person's personal triumph, personal mission. There's a collective good that we can get out of it. So that's the cultural fit. And then how that manifests, I think, can be creative and imaginative. So, but if we don't get that right, and even in Arkansas business, I've hired a couple of the wrong people. And one of them I knew. We take assessments. I could see on this person's assessment. I told her, we're going to have a problem here. We don't take care of you very well. It's going to create challenges. You're going to get frustrated. And she sold me, oh no, it'll be fine. And I was desperate. Let's be honest. I was desperate. I needed somebody, and I cut a corner. And it wasn't long. She's miserable. Her manager's miserable. Her team's miserable. That's a mistake I can't make again, right? And I've had to learn that. And that was 6 years ago. That wasn't that long ago. It's just critical for a company to be successful. And it means everything.
Recognizing we have people from all faith backgrounds that we work with the conductor, share, if I throw the word faith out there, what that means to you within the context of certainly personal, but really within the context of business in your workplace.
So I had no set goal to own a business again when Olivia was ready to sell. Wasn't my aspiration. I was content, actually took a lot of pride and thrill in growing this company for her and the stock. So when she said she was ready to sell, clearly that was a lot of prayer went into that. It's not, I had my entrepreneurship moments, I'd check my boxes, I didn't even have that. But felt so assured that this is exactly where I need to be. And I've used this word before, and I don't think it's too strong. I actually think it's the ministry I'm placed in, taking care of these people on our team, their family, their kids, they're taking care of this community and the states. And so with that faith, the faith that I know, I remember telling people on our staff, the managers, this may be financially a terrible decision, right? This is an incredibly significant transaction. Marshaling personal resources and signing your name as personally accountable, you know, there's no scapegoat here.
That's right.
But I had faith. This is where I was supposed to be. And I've told her, this may work. This may be better than we're doing now. It could be worse. This could be financially terrible. But I believe this is where we're supposed to be. And God will work out all the other things. And sometimes that doesn't mean success. I don't believe that as a Christian, I'm destined and predestined for those successful things. It is hard. It will be hard. It is hard. Entrepreneurship is hard. But that has been I can sleep at night knowing I'm in the right place. And I think that's the anchor for me on faith, that I trust that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I take that seriously. And it makes me grateful because it means for me, the problems are kind of worked out. You know, I'm just not supposed to mess it up.
Very good. Yeah, don't let there. That's right. How about we take a few questions from the viewing audience?
So we have one here from Jordan. And so Jordan asks, business publications can experience tension between advertising and editorial because you must sometimes cover unsavory news that could burn a bridge with a potential client. So how do you handle these conflicts both internally with the team and externally with business relationships?
So Jordan, I don't know if you've worked for our publication before or have worked for other media outlets, much less business journals, but this is a unique, you have hit on one of the most unique things.
He's always looking for talent.
Jordan, hit me up. That is a very astute observation that almost makes me feel like you have felt it. Because unlike either other media outlets, we cover the people who advertise in our product. So you are right. This tension is real. Let me give you a couple of examples. Last 2 years hadn't been the case because most of our huge clients have been very digitally driven. But up until a couple of years ago, our top 10 list of clients, 50% of them rotated out. Often because of this. And I won't name the bank owner, president who even said this, but we lost a significant client a couple of years ago for the exact reason you talk about. We were not writing badly about the bank. We wrote badly about one of the bank's clients. They were doing some shady things, but he was so emotionally attached and supportive of his clients. He didn't want his ad to be anywhere near something that might have looked badly. So that's a real thing. And secondly, I'll give you another quick example if this gets personal. We routinely write about certain businesses, a business that may not pay its taxes, right? You know, it's public information. It happens. Our team writes about this. It's a regular thing. We want to highlight businesses that are doing well and those that aren't, and we want the community to know who to do business with. Well, we made a little nondescript note that a certain business that I'm not going to mention didn't pay taxes. It's a consequential amount. It's probably 2 sentences, really. That's all. It wasn't this blown up story. It was really 2 sentences. Well, I go to church with that guy. I watched his kids in the nursery. I love him. He's, I mean, we know each other. I mean, this is personal. And he was not happy. And I get it. I would not have liked it either. So you're right. And so we went through the right process and worked through the personal things about that in terms of even how Christian brothers should reconcile. But the reality is the tension is real. And the second example wasn't an advertiser. The first one is, but all that does happen. Here's the answer to that. And this is not new. I've had to deal with this for 30 years in the newspaper business. Here's the answer. You have to build a business that can withstand your top 10 clients walking out the door today. We are not a normal business. We're not a Starbucks who offends one client and they lose a $5 cup of coffee a month, right? We've got to have the right cash flow. We've got to have the right cash reserves. We stand on principle. We're going to do this story because it's the right thing to do. And if it means I lose a $250,000 client tomorrow, we just got to do the right thing. This is a regular conversation because I just left before we came here, looked at what the content team put forward for Monday's paper. And I didn't see anything that's going to probably lose me money. But routinely, I can read over that 2-line sentence and go, that's going to cost me $100,000 on Monday. I see it. It's easy to spot. But we have to operate on principle. We're not for sale in terms of our content. We make no bones about that. You cannot buy good coverage in our product. You earn it, and we're happy to tell those stories. But we have to have a business model that can support that. We have to have the right cash on hand. We have to run the right effective processes. We're a for-profit business that runs this risk on a regular basis. And so the answer to that is you got to be on principle because you can't be for sale. If you're for sale in terms of your content, if your content's for sale, your credibility will not last in this marketplace. You cannot be a trusted resource if you're for sale. So you better have the right business plan, the right leadership, the right team, every leader understanding it. We talk about margin. We talk about the right profitability. We talk about cash on hand. It's in our goals as a company of what cash on hand expectations are. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean that Mitch just has all this extra cash under his desk. What is that used for, and what assurances does that give us, and what stability does that mean? It is a lot about educating our leadership team because we want to be ready for that moment. And we can say to one of those top advertisers, you make the business decision you think best, but we're going to go with this story.
Great. Another one?
So Jordan is a former Arkansas business intern.
I know who that is then.
So he applauds
well
your
done.
editorial
Yeah.
teams
Yes,
and for publishing with ethics.
Yes, I can see why.
Very
Yes.
good. That's good question, Jordan.
So you seem to have a strong, you seem to care a lot about the people that you bring onto your team personally. So since you vet those people, what are like 3 traits that you look for in those that you're bringing onto your team?
Yeah. So what I'm looking for, and I say this to college students, so this is a softball question. So thank you. I'll try to limit it to 3. I am looking for a creative problem solver. Okay. Now, whether that's a content creator, I want somebody who can effectively and creatively tell a meaningful story, right? So that requires just not doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. But whether that's in digital marketing or sales or design or organizational operational issues, or I'm looking for somebody who will think. I've been doing this a long time. I have run my playbook, right? I've got a bag of tricks, but I ran out of that years ago. And so I need partners who are going to think about how can we be better? And what maybe because we have 30 print products. We have a digital marketing team. We have I have 3 full-time event managers in our company. We have agency work and custom services teams. So we've got people in all these different niches. I'm not good enough to solve every problem. And I'm not. I'm just not. So I want people who can help me solve problems, number one, first and foremost. I am completely okay with people who like to rock the boat to a degree. And there's a point where that becomes culturally dangerous and unproductive. But I don't mind people operationally challenging the status quo. I think we have to do that, which all three of these dovetail into this. At the end of the day, I want somebody who's entrepreneurial and inventive. Our business is evolving at such a rapid pace. And I want somebody coming to me and going, I've got a great idea for a new business model, and I've even put a rough business plan together, and I think there's a market opportunity here. And if we invest X, we might can get Y. If that came from a frontline person, it makes me flip. Actually, I had a UCA grad who was formerly employed at Hewlett Packard a number of years ago, who came to us as their second job out of college. It wasn't long before she presented a business plan, insisted me and a couple of top leaders come. She built a PowerPoint. She was ready to be CEO by week 3. But I was so overjoyed that somebody would partner with me about how to reimagine what we can offer as a service. So those kind of frameworks, I think, light me up. Now notice, I'm sure I want you to be a great storyteller. You know, if you're a writer, I want you to be a gifted designer. I need you to have unique skills. But it's really those other problem solving, being inventive, thinking entrepreneurially. It's critical for us in every part of what we do these days.
Very good. Very good. One more?
So, you know, you have spent a lot of time in media. How have you seen the needs of your readers and subscribers change since you began in your career and now?
Well, so that's a big swatch, but here's the dirty little secret. The needs of our readers haven't changed, not one iota. They need the same thing today that they needed in 1980, which is meaningful content that is going to change the arc of their life. Now, whether you're a bride looking for the next tip on the best bridal gown and veil and music and venue, or whether you're running a $500 million company with 2,000 employees, you're looking for help. You're looking for inspiration. You're looking for something. And what has changed is how we deliver that information, right? So the conduit has changed. It's not just TV, radio, print, billboard, but what a reader needs, exactly the same. Looking for something that's going to move them, change them, help them become better. How we deliver that information has changed a lot, which is where the invention and reinvention needs to continue to happen. But the great thing about our business, and I tell our teams this, there could be a day there is no Arkansas Business print edition. It's hard to imagine. Strangely enough, our print paid subscribers are at an all-time high, which is really unusual if you follow paid publications. Again, we've been really blessed. There could be a day, I can't see it at the moment, but that doesn't mean we won't be delivering this content in a different way. So the reader really hasn't changed. And advertisers' needs have changed because the audience now has fragmented, right? It's not just, we're not all lined up to watch Walter Cronkite's evening news. You all don't even know who Walter Cronkite is. So for Jeff and me and any other grandpas in the world, or maybe another era. Did you all even watch The Cosby Show? What would be the end of kind of the mass moment? The end of Cheers?
Friends.
Yeah, maybe, you know, that idea, the singular
that they're watching now on Netflix reruns.
Yeah. That moment where we
reruns even a word anymore.
I don't know. That's that collective moment where we were all in one place isn't there, right? Yeah. Incredibly fragmented. So a need of an advertiser, a business all along Conway's Main Street or across this state and nation, they have the need is the same. The way we solve the need is different, right? They all need leads. They need customers to walk in their door. That's no different than when it was just a newspaper, just a billboard, just a radio station. They need customers to walk in the door. So that hasn't changed. The way we do that has evolved dramatically. And 2 years from now, if we were having the same conversation, we'll be telling you it's evolved again in dramatic ways. So that's where we go back to the ideal human, right? Problem solver, imaginative, disruptor, Innovative. Those are the traits we need to help me anticipate what's around the corner. The needs are the same. Business owner needs leads to sell stuff. That's no different. Reader needs inventive things to change his or her life. Same as always. How we do that changed exponentially since I was a paper boy at the Daily Siftings Herald in Arkadelphia, Arkansas.
So we're going to land the plane.
All right.
I want to share an acknowledgement or an observation that I made from the stories you told us today, and then I want to ask you one final question. You've demonstrated through your story the importance of relationships, relationships that led you to different career milestones, relationships that led you to where you are today, the importance of relationships with the 5 key stakeholders that comprise your 5-legged stool. And so that's an important leadership point there. And I wanted to acknowledge that it's obvious in your life and career. So let's set that one aside.
Good.
And I want you to give us a piece of parting wisdom, separate from the relationship aspect. So,
well, this ties into perhaps one of my greatest leadership mistakes that I've learned. And I've sort of referred to this along the way. But you can't do it alone. So right out of college or that new employee at a place, you want to make a mark, even at first new manager, right? You're still just trying to make a mark and you're checking off things you put on LinkedIn. You're trying to figure out the way you can make your star shine so you can get from point A to point B. And I get that. I've done that. I've moved for a period of my life. I moved every 18 months to 2 years, climbing a ladder, moving up a thing, doing a thing, making a mark. And I ran over a lot of people in that process and didn't develop hardly any. Now, I got a lot of kudos, and we set a lot of records, but things I have regret for are, when I look back, are moments where I was not subject to one another. And what I had to realize as a leader, much less somebody who owns a company, is that my company is better the more skills, thoughts, people, ideas I bring to the table. I say this now, and it took me a while to get here. I used to think it was important that I was the smartest one in the room, that I had every answer, led every discussion, stood on every stage. And now, if I'm the smartest one in the room, we really have problems. I mean, we really do.
I hear you.
And I'm okay with that. And I got okay with that a handful of years ago. And that's the difference for me. The parting wisdom is as soon as you can do it, realize you can't do it alone. That doesn't mean you aren't a great CEO. It doesn't mean you aren't a great entrepreneur. But the more you can bring other ideas to the table, resources together, partners to the table, stakeholders to the table, you're going to have a stronger, more stable, more effective, more valuable company because I have my limits. And it took me years to realize that, and even further, more years to get to admit that. But it's liberating, and it's exciting. And I get a thrill watching that employee and that manager do something amazing. And would I've done it differently? Sure. But we got there, and watching their development and their growth and our company's expansion and developing a deeper bench, all that is really a result of me not owning everything. It's the thing our previous owner didn't do well. She would admit that. Every decision in that company before went through her. Every one of them. And it's the entrepreneur thing, right? This is my baby.
Right.
I built it. I'm the smartest one in the room. She is the smartest one in the room. But I'm the smartest one in the room. We can't fail. My whole life is in this thing. So I make every decision. And when I got there, we began building a team and pushing decisions back and letting other people be a part of that. But I learned that as a lesson years ago. And it's taken me a while to get better at it. So that would be the parting wisdom, is get to a point where you can say that and then allow your company and the people around you to be able to build and grow. We'll be stronger.
Very good. Mitch, it's always a pleasure.
Loved it, brother.
We appreciate
This
you.
was
We
fun.
appreciate Arkansas Business and Arkansas Business Publishing Group. We appreciate the work that you do in the state to keep us all informed. For all of you who are joining us tonight, we appreciate you for joining. If you are experiencing any issues with your business that you want to reach out to the conductor at arconductor.org. We provide no-cost coaching, consulting, mentoring, training. We have a variety of workshops, webinars that are going on a regular basis. We encourage you to like our Facebook page, follow us there, check out our schedule of events, and let us know if we can help you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back soon. Mitch, thanks again.
My pleasure.